And hello again, everyone. Welcome to our latest edition of Gulfstream Weekly. Joining you from beautiful Gulfstream Park, our sport of kings, not Ron Nicoletti's living room, although this is very nice, Ronnie. I love what you've done with the place, and it's good to have everybody with us, and good to be sitting next to you.
I just watered the flowers, so everything is on go right now.
Well, we've got a lot of ground to cover, certainly a lot to talk about here over the next 30 minutes or so, and again, delighted to have you with us here on Gulfstream Weekly. Wednesdays are dark during the summertime at Gulfstream, but the bright lights of Sport of Kings are not. Now, let's start out, and again, we'll have backtracking to the 2-year-olds. We'll talk about some horses to look for in this coming week. But again, as far as taking a look at major stakes, basically in New York and at Gulfstream Park, there was a lot to digest this past weekend.
A couple of really nice races and horses setting themselves up for the summer, so we'll go through those. And if we know where they might be going, we'll try and let you know.
Yeah, now, as far as starting out the action with races of the week on Gulfstream Weekly, we won't backtrack or go very far, in fact. Last Sunday afternoon, we ran the $50,000 Mechie Stakes. This one on the turf, named for a 3-time Grade 1 winning Florida bred about 20 years ago in the mid-90s. He was a good one, Mechie. Diamond Bachelor, the horse on the lead, set an insane pace. And I was impressed in hindsight watching this race again, Ronnie. Spring Up, the winner in the hot pink Gary Barber Silks, he was basically on a hard chase throughout the entire affair.
And they went really fast early, as you mentioned. I mean, the half in 46 plus and wins the Mechie. Miguel Vasquez picks up the mount and wins it for trainer Mark Cassie.
And this underscores, I think, just how tough the product here at Gulfstream Park is during the summertime. We've had a number of very high-profile trainers and barns leave horses down here in South Florida throughout the summer months. Mike Maker, Todd Fletcher come to mind. So does trainer Mark Cassie. And he and his crew have done a nice job getting Spring Up, who's 2 for 2 off an extended 6-month layoff. He's been very good over his last couple of starts. And, of course, it was great in hindsight seeing Mechie's name in the program.
Oh, yeah, Mechie, the greatest horse. One of the greatest horses that we ever got to watch down here in Florida. I love that horse. He could run on anything. And our big joke in the press box, this horse could run on glass if he had to.
Yeah, no kidding.
So versatile and made over $2 million in his career.
Yeah, around 2.6, a 3-time Grade 1 winner, and trained by Manny Tortora back in the good old days of the mid-90s. Moving on to the action at Belmont Park, they had their ever-popular and somewhat new Stars and Stripes program. Number of divisions were in the mix this past Saturday up in New York. Among them, 3-year-olds, and I had always looked at the Dwyer, even in all my years covering New York racing, as like the unofficial second start, or I should say the unofficial start to the second half of the 3-year-old season, and I think that's a pretty good segue into the field that you had in the Dwyer. Not a big cast by any means. Battalion Runner was coming back off a second in the Wood Memorial back in April. The one we've got highlighted, though, in the red cap of Klaravich Stables, Practical Joke, who basically had to wait for room, but once he did, I mean, this race was basically over at the quarter pole.
Well, as you mentioned, he beats 4 in here as the favorite for Chad Brown, and if you read all the notes, he's headed to the Haskell in its next start, and a very nice performance, and should move forward, and I think maybe win the Haskell.
Well, he'll have to have his running shoes on to win the Haskell. Clearly, he was very sharp. He was dropping out of the Kentucky Derby, a 5th-place finish for Practical Joke, who got a pretty gaudy buyer in the low hundreds for that effort. He was very sharp, very professional. Again, that Haskell, however, is really shaping up. I would say, as far as the second half of the 3-year-old season, that might be the biggest 3-year-old race of them all. We'll see if down the road the Travers can match the kind of star power, because you've got Practical Joke, Timeline for Chad Brown, those 2 horses out of the same barn, Irish Warcry, Classic Empire, and Battle of Midway coming in from the West Coast.
Yeah, well, that's a great lineup, and Irish Warcry was my Kentucky Derby pick, so we'll see how if he bounces back and wins the Haskell. It should be an exciting race, but we got to move on here with another pretty interesting finish in this race.
Well, yeah, I mean, as far as the finish, and this was a case where the old Mind Your Biscuits had his foes in the Belmont Sprint Championship pretty much dead to rights. This horse just was so handy getting the win on Saturday afternoon, was up close to the pace, backed off a bit into the far turn, and as he turns for home in that orange cap and the blue sleeves, it's just a matter of how much is he going to win by. He was very good once again in his first start since Dubai.
He was very impressive. This performance puts him right in the front as the top sprinter in the country. Just draws off, and he did it so easily. It was really, really impressive to watch.
I'm reminded every time we see Mind Your Biscuits run, and of course we saw him run so well here behind Unified over the winter during the championship meet. I believe it was the Mr. Prospector, but I'm reminded that he is just a horse that proves a good horse can come from anywhere. He's owned by blue-collar people who love the game. He wasn't sold at auction for millions of dollars. This is sort of a very homegrown blue-collar New York bred who now is ranked and should be #1 as far as the best sprinter in the nation.
And one of the owners did become the trainer, Chad Summers, and you know, he went in Dubai, and he was the greatest thing. Watching him when his horse won in Dubai was almost as exciting as the horse winning.
And of course, you had Arrogate on that card. Sit tight. We'll get you back and up to speed regarding his recent workout Saturday morning at Santa Anita. But before we talk about Arrogate, let's talk about a horse who finished up the track behind the mighty Arrogate in the inaugural Pegasus here in January. Of course, I'm talking about Keen Ice, who had gone winless in 10 prior starts since defeating Triple Crown champion American Pharaoh in the 2015 Travers at Saratoga. This, of course, is the Suburban, Shaman Ghost, and the Stronach Silks, the black colors, taking the lead at this point over Matt King Cole. But he was no match for Keen Ice, who all of a sudden, Ronnie, just showed up with his A effort out of the blue.
And I believe that trainer is Todd Fletcher, and he springs the upset on Shaman Ghost and pays $12 to win. So Keen Ice was everybody's joke horse that he couldn't win in the last 10 starts, but he sure proved them wrong this afternoon.
It's amazing how just a horse can kind of go through the motions, pick up some minor checks in big pot races. He's banked over $3 million despite the fact he's won only 4 or 5 races in his career. But Keen Ice has picked the right times to show up, obviously with his upset in the Midsummer Derby nearly 2 years ago, and he was good once again on Saturday, getting the money in the Suburban, and that should set him up for a run against Gunrunner in the Whitney at Saratoga.
Gunrunner, really a positive move forward for Gunrunner in his last race. So I think that it's going to be fun. Keen Ice, still can't trust him.
No, can't trust him. But again, those races, as far as the Whitney and the Woodward, any race that doesn't have Arrogate in it, I think you've got to consider yourself in that handicap division lucky, because he is such a powerhouse. And once again, like clockwork, went out and breezed 7 furlongs this past Saturday out at Santa Anita. Bob Baffert got him out early. I guess the heat index by late morning this past weekend at Santa Anita in Southern Cali was in the low hundreds. So it was shortly before 7 a.m. He's obviously the gray by Unbridled Song on the outside of his workmate. 7/8, 25-3, the official time. And it's just great, Ronnie, that we're closing in on his Del Mar, return to Del Mar in the July 22nd, San Diego.
Yeah, 125.60 to be exact if you want to go to the hundreds. And Arrogate works early in the morning, as you mentioned, 100 degrees. Well, we got that here every day, so I can understand that.
He is some racehorse, though. Where does he sit? I know you're not really one. Cigar's your favorite horse of all time, and I know you're not one to say, well, this horse ranks #3 in all the horses that I've seen. But from what we have witnessed with Arrogate, would you put him in the top 5 visually with what he's done of horses you've seen with your own eyes?
Well, he moved to first on the Goosebump meter when he won here in the Pegasus World Cup. It was just an exciting afternoon to see him win it. It was just one of the greatest feelings I ever had at a racetrack, so I'm a big fan. I got to see a little bit more, but how could you not say he's the greatest racehorse in training right now?
Oh, certainly.
And if not in lifetime, you know.
Yeah, no kidding. He's in the top 5 for me already with what he's accomplished. And again, we still have a few more races to look forward to. You would think San Diego, July 22nd, Pacific Classic, Breeders' Cup Classic, and hopefully we have him right back here at Gulfstream Park as he looks to put his title defense in the second running of the Pegasus on the line come January. Talking about covering a lot of ground. We promise that and we'll deliver. Why don't we head down to Puerto Rico and we'll check out the last leg of the Puerto Rican Triple Crown with Justice Cero, who back this past weekend won the Puerto Rican Triple Crown as a big favorite.
And if you watch the race through the whole race, you don't see him in the beginning. You keep looking for the 5 horse in here who's Justice Cero. He's 1 to 5. He goes from last to first and he wins the Copa San Juan and gets the Puerto Rican Triple Crown. And we'll be seeing this horse right here in December.
Yes, that is the Clásico Internacional del Caribe. That's going to be an action-packed day where we celebrate South American racehorses and, of course, the Latin-based racehorses. And it's just one more, I think, tip of the nod to the passion that the Stronach Group has and love of horse racing around the country and world.
This was not an easy task to put together because when you ship horses in from Latin America and from all over the world, you know, you got to put them in quarantine. So they worked all of these things out, and it's going to be on December 9th right here at Gulfstream Park. And there you see it, December 9th, 5 races worth $600,000.
There will be a lot of money up for grabs, and we will see South America's best racehorses, jockeys, trainers. This is, again, a one-of-a-kind event, something that's never happened before as far as a pari-mutuel facility outside Latin America and the Caribbean hosting this great racing event, and of course headlined by the $300,000 Caribbean Derby. Again, that'll be a lot of fun, and you're going to want to keep it locked here on the Gulfstream Park social media pages, our YouTube page, and of course our racetrack feed day in and day out as we build up for that big December 9th day. We'll take a little time out, Ronnie. Races of the week, they were terrific. We hope you enjoyed them, and again, we'll backtrack. We've got some 2-year-olds coming your way, and again, who's going to win this coming week at Gulfstream Park? All that and more coming your way after this little breather on Gulfstream Weekly.
Hey, South Florida, it's time to get social at sunset. This summer at Gulfstream Park, as the sun goes down, the scene heats up. Join us each week for Twilight Racing Fridays, a fusion of horse racing, food and drink specials, and live performances by local bands. Enter drawings and play horse racing bingo, your chance to win incredible prizes. Live racing begins at 2:15. Admission and parking are free. Visit GulfstreamPark.com for more details. Gulfstream Park, Twilight Racing Friday. Get social at sunset.
A passion for horses and a commitment to breed champions is the foundation of Hardacre Farm. Founded in 1999 by Amy Tarrant, owner, breeder, and trainer, Hardacre Farm, now based in Ocala, continues its tradition of success. From the Breeders' Cup to Gulfstream Park, Hardacre Farm, from the breeding shed to the racetrack, in pursuit of producing the best.
And we're back from our Sport of Kings here at Gulfstream Park on this Wednesday edition of Gulfstream Weekly. It is Jason and Ron. Delighted you're still with us here as we said goodbye to races of the week. And what's on your mind? I know you have something pressing to say.
No, I was just so relaxed, and I'm glad you said welcome back because it shook me. This is a great set. Don't get to enjoy these big back chairs very often in our job. So I'm ready to move forward. I want to see some of this 2-year-old action.
Yes, and that's been the great thing. Again, for me, as an admitted Florida newbie and rookie, the amount of baby races we run down here at Gulfstream Park on a weekly basis, there are a minimum of a handful, give or take, and we've seen some good efforts. Bal Harbor, to me, he's my favorite 2-year-old that I've seen, and I have a feeling he might be running opening weekend at Saratoga in the Sanford for Todd Fletcher. But Ralph Nix, Ronnie, boy, did he have a big week this past week at Gulfstream Park. In fact, his first one up, because he had back-to-back 2-year-olds win by the late Wildcat Air. It began Friday on that Twilight Friday program with Capital S, who, I mean, what about the heart this horse showed, Ron?
Unbelievable. Like you kept saying, you know, at this part of the race, oh, this horse is going to pass him. This horse is going to pass him. He held on to win it by a head. Very game. Son of Wildcat Air. That was on Friday, as you mentioned. Edgar Zayas in the saddle. Talked to Ralph Nix after the race, said didn't have him totally cranked, was surprised how incredibly game this horse was. And there you see it, fighting right to the wire. He's the number 7 horse that afternoon, just holds on to win it by a head. So I thought it was an incredible performance because he looked like I said he was going to be passed throughout the stretch. And the 2-year-old just showed that game, the splitting horses in the drive. I was impressed.
Yeah, very seasoned effort, and you would think off that performance, you're dealing with a real threat to win that opening leg of the Florida Sire Stakes here on August 5th. And I have a feeling in the coming weeks here on GP Weekly, we'll start having our countdown for some of the main contenders of both the 2-year-old Colts, Geldings, and of course the 2-year-old fillies in the Florida Sire Stakes. And it might be a 2-bagger at the minimum for Ralph Nix going into the male division of that Florida Sire Stakes, because on Saturday following Capital S was another horse, a gray in fact, by the late Wildcat Air. named Phantom Row, who showed big speed, and boy, oh boy, this horse was just sharp. It was close with capital S, not the case Saturday with Phantom Row.
Draw off to win it by over 2 lengths, about 2 1/4 lengths. And you mentioned that the last winner that we just showed you on Friday, that one was Wildcat Air. This one is by Wildcat Air and ridden today. That day, by Edgar Zayas.
Edgar Zayas, who picked up the slack. Jockey Tyler Gaffleone spent Saturday up in New York. Things did not work out on that Stars and Stripes card for trainer Nick Zito with Giuseppe the Great and the Dwyer behind Practical Joke. But Edgar Zayas, a more than worthy fill-in, and that doesn't even give him the props he deserves. He's a terrific rider, very smart, very well prepared, and he sat on a good one. And what a shame losing Wildcat Air. I hadn't realized he had passed away in early January of 2015, so this is his last crop.
Yeah, I heard you talking about that the other day. I wasn't aware of it either.
Yeah.
In his last crop, and he's got these 2 winners right here. And on Friday's card, there's another first-time starter coming back for Wildcat Air, so we're getting to see the final progeny of that horse over the next, through the summer campaign.
Yeah, what a shame losing him, but clearly his legacy, because he was a big speed, big talent, and classy horse. He has certainly passed that on to some of his youngsters here in South Florida. Now, we hate to really cover old news, but it's 4th of July here at Gulfstream Park. I know it was over a week ago by the time you're seeing this, but it was such a day for the history books with what Tyler Gaffleone accomplished. We couldn't do it justice by not bringing it up and giving Tyler some props and some love. A 7-win 4th of July. The fireworks were going off early and all day for Mr. Tyler G as he just ran himself and rode himself into the record books.
7 wins on the afternoon, and that tied Jerry Bailey for the most wins in one day right here at Gulfstream Park, and that was done in 1995. And I was glad to see a tweet from Jerry Bailey, congratulating him. This was a feat, and you could just see, just perfectly placed every race for him to win that afternoon.
Rides every type of horse. There has not been a particular style or even surface that I've said, you know what, that's Tyler's best surface or that's his best move. He does it all, and I think when you combine a confidence factor, his preparation, and his athleticism, when you combine those three, and it sounds easy on paper, but no matter what you do in life, no matter what your station in life, to have all those three working in a perfect synergy, Tyler's got it going on, and as a result, he's #1 in the country in wins. Not earnings, of course, but in victories, and this is a budding superstar, as I tell people who might not be that familiar with watching him on a daily basis.
168 victories, and we're just in the beginning of July.
Yes, I mean, let's hope he stays healthy. You've got to stay healthy. That's more than half the battle. But no telling what Tyler will accomplish this year with his agent, Matt Musiker, Erod Ortiz, and Jose Ortiz, both natives of Puerto Rico, who I was thinking of when we showed that Copa San Juan Stakes. There's certainly a rich history, racing history, in and out of Puerto Rico. So let's move on to the trainers here as far as trainers being ranked in wins with 2017 more than halfway over, and clearly the bottom 3 guys from Asmussen to Todd Fletcher down to Hollendorfer are very much household names. 2 are in the Hall of Fame, and Fletcher, of course, will be a first ballot Hall of Fame his first year of eligibility.
In his first year of staying here for the spring meet, he wins the title. So Todd Fletcher, of course, perennial leading trainer here during the championship meeting, and Steve Asmussen, 209 wins. And as you mentioned, Carl Broberg, I'm not too familiar with, 242 wins.
Crazy. Runs out in the Midwest. He's a guy, Louisiana, and was reading about him because he's not a trainer that's a household name, say, on the East Coast or in Florida, but clearly he is a guy that comes at you with the numbers and a trainer that knows how to get results. Just like the championship meet as a whole, it's really heartwarming, and we're certainly proud of where we work and the product that we have here, being employed by the Stronach Group and working at a place with such a classy and rich thoroughbred racing history here in South Florida like Gulfstream Park. And we thought it'd be fun, again, with the season a little more than halfway over and Saratoga and Del Mar about to start, why don't we take a look back and see the future graded stakes winners that plied their trade here at GP over the championship meet. What's a perfect segue for that? Always dreaming in the Kentucky Derby.
Wins the Florida Derby and goes on, as you mentioned, and wins the Kentucky Derby. So it doesn't get much better than that. And Brooklyn Boys Stable and trained by Todd Fletcher. So very exciting way to cap off the championship meeting by having Always Dreaming go on to win the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, and this Florida Derby, you talk about fertile ground, and everybody argues no matter what sort of jurisdiction you're in. I know back when I was working in New York, and I still have a lot of pride and love and respect for the Wood Memorial, but it is nice when you just look at sheer numbers as far as producing recent Kentucky Derby winners and even winners of a Triple Crown race. I don't think anybody could argue the Florida Derby is the way to go and get into the Run for the Roses.
We proved it this year, and we prove it a lot of times. So definitely the place to be in the winter if you want to win that big race in the first Saturday in May.
Right, and even a race after that, say the Preakness or the Belmont Stakes, you want to be draped in black-eyed Susans or carnations in addition to the roses, because we did walk away when the 2017 Triple Crown was all said and done. We wound up here at Gulfstream Park producing a pair of classic winners. And keep in mind, the list you're about to see, all these horses had to record at least one start during the 2016-17 GP Championship season. You had Tappert and Always Dreaming, and a slew of Grade 1 winners, including Divisadero, Dickinson, and of course Golden Shaheen with Mind Your Biscuits, who prepped here against Unified.
And as you mentioned, Tappert won the Pulpit Stakes here and went on to win the Belmont Stakes. So, Classic Empire goes and wins the Arkansas Derby. So, it just everybody that we've seen run here in the winter, we're so lucky to be. Divisadero goes on and wins the Grade 1 Turf Classic.
Yep, on Derby Day in front of a big crowd at Churchill Downs. Jenny Wiley Stakes produced, or I should say Dickinson, who wintered here for Keir McLaughlin, wound up winning the Jenny Wiley. That is a coveted race in her division. And a few other Grade 2 and Grade 3 winners, including Shaman Ghost, who might be running in the Whitney. If he doesn't show up there, he'll be one of the horses to beat around Labor Day in the Woodward. You've got Timeline, who I am most looking forward to, Ronnie, seeing compete in the Haskell when he finally goes way up in class after making it a perfect 4 for 4.
One of my favorite horses, I don't know if it's on the actress, goes on and was second in the Game Faces and made here. Goes in and wins the Black-Eyed Susan. I was there that afternoon. It was so exciting to see this horse run here and go and win the Black-Eyed Susan.
Now, she's a good one, and certainly a filly owned by the West and trained by Jason Service to keep an eye on the remainder of the season. We've got Bill Mott covered with Bala Rocks, nice turf horse who won the poker a few weeks ago. Brian Lynch has got a Grade 2/Grade 1 winner in Unchained Melody. I still do not agree that the Mother Goose is a Grade 2 and not its Grade 1, which it should be for the rest of time. But she looked pretty good a few weeks ago at Belmont Park. And then, I mean, the path to the winner's circle on Stars and Stripes Day this past weekend up in New York was running here at GP over the winter.
Yeah, we just showed them on your Biscuits, Keen Ice, go Practical Joke. There they all are, and they all ran here, and it's a great place. I mean, this is the setup for everybody, everything that happens during the summer campaign.
It's the Mecca. Right? We are Thoroughbred Racing's epicenter throughout early December through that Florida Derby, and of course, we're in good shape now. The summer meet's been terrific. Want to thank the fans again for supporting us throughout a record-breaking spring and early summer season at Gulfstream Park, and we very much appreciate the fans and, of course, the horses that just go out there and give us everything. So with the first two segments down, we want to know who Ronnie likes, and we'll talk about who we may think will run well this coming week at Gulfstream Park. Back at it this coming Thursday at 1:15, and we'll have plenty coming your way in just a second. And down the stretch we go on this Wednesday edition of Gulfstream Weekly. Glad you're still tied on and with us here. Just coming down to the finish line, but a few more items to note with Jason and Ron from our Sport of Kings studio at Gulfstream Park. And taking a look back at what's already happened, what about tickets to be cashed in the future? That is the name of the game after all. Back at it, Ronnie, again, Thursday's card. And there's a number of interesting races here Thursday, including J.B. Quick, who really, I mean, he's tough in his own right, faces a good crew in the third.
A good crew in the third, and he won very impressively back on April 22nd, and I think we're going to go back and show you that performance. Was 5-2 that afternoon.
Yes, 96 buyer in this effort. What do you do with the horse, though, who ran out of his skin, two back, and returned here a few weeks later and bombed as a big odds-on favorite for trainer Ralph Zadie?
It's the old bounce-rebound angle, if you follow that. And I just think J.B. Quick, who I picked, is in the right spot, and that will be on Thursday, as you mentioned, in race number 3.
He's got a great post, and I'll tell you, Ralph Zadie, this could be a very big or very disappointing Thursday at Gulfstream for him. He's got 4 entered, including J.B. Quick, and 4 likely favorites, and a couple of drop-downs later in the card. So how you feel about Ralph Zadie and a few of his drop-downs in addition to J.B. Quick probably will say a lot in how you're wagering Thursday at Gulfstream Park. Now, Dressed in Heels, she's one of a couple of fillies looking for 4 consecutive wins. You've got Cajun Queen in Thursday's 9th, Dressed in Heels in the 8th, and let's go back and look at Dressed in Heels' last start. Take us through off the quarter pole.
Well, what I want to talk about in here, Dressed in Heels and also Athera, who's going to meet again. Now, you'll watch Dressed in Heels running through the stretch, the number 4 that afternoon in the 2-path. On the inside, you see Athera, who's closing along the inside and just seems to be bogged down. Now, you'll watch here, the horse gets off the rail finally and gets this little bit of a surge at the end when it gets in the 2-path and almost reels in Dressed in Heels. What I wanted to show from that replay was that day, if you're looking at that particular afternoon, I thought the inside was a little deep, and if you saw horses that maybe got bogged down on the rail, you might want to, give them an extra look when you're handicapping in the future. Just want to a little bit of a bias play there.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Dressed in Heels. Again, she's looking for 4 in a row. She's caught wet tracks, very sloppy tracks in 2 of her last 3 wins. And I think there's a good chance she might get hooked or at least have to run hard chasing the stretch-out Loving Valentina. I think Dressed in Heels, personally, for me, is a little vulnerable. And if I was going to back, and she'll be a shorter price than Dressed in Heels, either filly who's looking for 4 in a row or who are looking for 4 in a row, I prefer Cajun Queen in the race later on the turf. Now, as far as Friday's card, we got another Twilight Friday, and this effort we're going to look at that Ronnie picked out with more Alex. This, as far as a quote-unquote losing effort, was one of the greatest losing efforts I've seen in recent memory.
Yeah, this race was back on June 18th. It was race number 3. We're going to show you the start here of the number 5, More Alex. If you want to call it a start, they'll start it there. It's still in the gate. Comes back. Now we're going to switch around and, turns for home, 5 wide, and comes to the top of the stretch. If you look at the halftime, stop it there for 1 second, 50. You don't have to stop it because, there you go. Stop at 50 and just closes strongly. You're going to watch the number 5 More Alex through the stretch after that horrendous start, slow half-mile time, comes and only gets beat, a half a length in the whole race. I just thought it was an incredible performance. But with that comes, when you look at this horse's past performances, has dwelt at the start in consecutive races. So if this one can ever get out of the starting gate in a timely fashion, could be very dangerous. Thought it was an incredible start. Incredible race after that bad start.
Yes, he's trained by Elizabeth Dobles, a former assistant to Jeremiah Engelhard up in New York, and of course northern New York in the Finger Lakes region as well. She does a very good job, and she's got a runner there in More Alex, who, by the way, has to run against King Hood and Porter Street, who were first and second, narrowly in front of him in that turf race that we just looked at. We'll have a stake here on Saturday. 3 and up fillies and mares on the turf will strut their stuff in the Treasure Coast or Treasure Chest, treasure something. We do know Ms. Money, when she's good, she's a treasure in her own right. She's owned by E5 Thoroughbreds, who just got a major $1 million Grade 1 win last Saturday up at Belmont Park in the Belmont Oaks with New Money Honey. And I do love their silks, the purple and the lime green. And this gray filly is trained by David Fox.
Well, one thing I can tell you, it's going to be a huge field. Early on, there's already 11 entries in this race, so it's going to be an overnight handicap. Fillies and mares, 3 5-year-olds and upward. They're going to go 1 mile on the turf that afternoon.
Yeah, she's a contender, Ms. Money. She showed some game this year and was back on track. She had kept pretty good company for the bulk of 2016. Kind of tailed off last summer, came back here as a fresh horse for David Falks, and clearly showed she still wants to be a racehorse with that very game victory a few weeks ago on the GP Green. Now, as far as Thursday's card, again, with those 3 consecutive dark days, we have not run locally since this past Sunday, and that means there's over $140,000 waiting for you in Thursday's Rainbow Six pool.
Rainbow Six, Thursday, a 10-race card, so it starts in race number 5, and on Friday, if it lasts, it'll start in race number 4, but let's get it done on Thursday.
And the forecast looks terrific here. No reason we shouldn't be fast and firm as long as Mother Nature complies. And, of course, Friday, another around 2:15 p.m. start time with the live music and the happy hour specials. Gulfstream Park has been rocking and buzzing each and every Sunset Friday, and we've got another event lined up, another Sunset Friday program lined up for you, starting a little after 2:15 with plenty of turf. And I'm happy to see in the last race that day for trainer Joe Orsino, 2-year-old maiden race, first baby I've seen by Point of Entry, who was owned by the Phipps, trained by Shug McGahee. I was a big fan of his. He'll have his first youngster here in Florida.
Great way to end the day, a full field of 2-year-old state breds to end the Rainbow Six. So it's been a fantastic week. Lots of fireworks, not only on 4th of July. Tyler Gaffleone was pretty exciting.
And we'll see Tyler in action, Edgar Zayas, and this first-class jockey colony. And again, we thank you for joining us here on Gulfstream Weekly. Buzzer has sounded. We could sit here with you and talk horses all day, but we've got to say goodbye. And again, we're back at it this coming Thursday at around 1:15.